Thank you very much. I was saying earlier, actually, that and our speaker tonight, Mr. Audley Knight, and I have a lot of things in common. And he has 20 years experience in the financial sector, mainly in sales and business development and operation, with 3 international financial institutions serving the Caribbean and the USA. He has a bachelor from the University of Technology and an MBA from the Florida International University. And he also holds a certification in financial planning and change management. Since September 2019, he joined the Rotary International as a regional member officer, supporting 33 zones, supporting zone 33 and 34. The region covers Southeast USA, which is Washington, DC, PA, I'm not sure which state is PA. VA, I'm not sure either. Maybe you can clarify because I'm not sure of the US state acronyms. The Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida, as well as the Caribbean. So those are the zones and regions that it supports. And Audley is also a Rotarian since 2006 and served as a president in 2009. He then went on to serve District 7020 in several capacities covering new generation, Rotaract, district events, and an assistant governor. He is now a member of the Rotary Club of North Cobb in Kennesaw, Georgia, District 6900. Welcome, Audley. We are happy to have you amongst us.
All right, thank you very much. I have some slides to share. I just want to thank President Angela and Past President Grace for the invitation, even though she's jumping in and out because where she is, the signal is not very strong at all. I have some slides. I'm just going to share a few slides, and we're just having a conversation this evening. I don't mind that our numbers may be small, but we feel like we're just having a chat, and that makes me much more comfortable actually. So if you can give me probably a thumbs up, probably President Angela, if you're seeing the screen and you're hearing me okay, wonderful. So I can't be from RI and not share some information about membership and where we are globally. So the talk today or this evening is about membership update, and I'm going to speak a little bit about some engagement ideas and share some best practices as well. So let me just dive right into it. So this is where we are globally since 1 July 2020, and we track the numbers. We track the numbers from 1 July to 1 July each year because that's our financial year. Okay? So between 2011 and 2021, the Asian region has grown from 26% to 34% of our global population. Canada, the Caribbean, and the US have dropped from 32 to 27%. Africa, Europe, and the Middle East has kept around the same 25%. Latin America has kept around 8%. Great Britain and Ireland have dropped from 5% to about 3%. And Australia, New Zealand, and the Pacific Island has also dropped a little bit from about 4% to about 3%. But the growth in Asia is just phenomenal. That growth is representing about a net increase of about 78,000 Rotarians in the past 10 years, and it continues to grow. The Caribbean, in this particular region that's linked to Canada and the US, the Caribbean is growing. Those two districts, 70-20 and 70-30, they have actually been growing. So if not, that 27% would have actually been a little bit less. Africa, as I'm sure you would have known, is growing tremendously, which is fantastic. But the European side has actually dropped a little bit, but because it's in the same region, that same 25% has kind of kept steady. We're a little bit concerned about Great Britain and Ireland because when we looked at the age range there, the average age that side is about 70 years old. So we have to look at that as well too. So these are some actual numbers that came out of 1 July 2020. We ended with, well, we started 1 July 2020 with 1,162 Rotarians, and that's a net loss of about 12,000 globally since 1 July 2020. So 1 July 2020, we were 1,174. But since then, we've increased by about 18,000 Rotarians, which is now 1,182. And when I looked at the numbers yesterday, that's where we are. And 1 July, we were at 36,000 clubs. That's an increase of about 455 more clubs since 1 July 2020. So I know normally we'll always say we have 1.2 million members and 35,000 clubs. We can comfortably say we're at 36,000 clubs and climbing. So hopefully we'll change that part of the language going forward. We have 24% women globally, which is fantastic, and it's growing. The Rotaract side they have been getting that part of it much better than Rotarians. It's right now about 50-50 for Rotaractors. And we have 220,000 Rotaractors 1 July 2020. That's an increase, 2021, and that's an increase of about 17,000 Rotaractors since 1 July 2020. Again, looking at the numbers yesterday, we are in that number further increased to 1,001 Rotaractors. 1 July, we're at 10,000 Rotaract clubs, and that was a slight drop of 282 since 1 July 2020. Let me just speak a little bit about Rotaract. Well, Rotaract is elevated, and they're going to start paying dues come next year, July 2022. So we believe some of these Rotaract numbers may be a little bit low because Rotaract currently still requires some level of self-reporting. So if you are a club president or you are a Rotary club that sponsors a Rotaract club, the Rotary club leaders can go in and update the Rotaract information. Once a Rotary club has keyed like the president of the Rotaract club or the secretary of the Rotaract club, the Rotaract leadership can then populate the information with Rotaract. So we really do believe that 220 is actually a little bit lower because again, Rotaract requires some self-reporting. So any Rotaract club that you're aware of, if you sponsor one or if you have friends or really friends in District 9400, remind them to update the Rotaract information for me because I'm sure, again, we're not capturing the amount. This is a slide I was referring to, President Angela. When I looked at the Rotary Club of Johannesburg, I was just amazed because part of what I do is share best practices with clubs across my zones and obviously across the world. And the graph on the left is a 10-year membership trend. So right now you are at the highest level of membership over the past 10 years. I didn't dive into see what it looked like prior to 2012, but this is just phenomenal. So the table on the right shows 31 members year to date, and the table in the top right is showing 41% of your membership are ladies, are women. That's fantastic. Remember, the global average is 24. So you're way above average and you're doing some really phenomenal things. So I know I mentioned to membership chair, John, if you can just tell me in 1 or 2 minutes, what happened last year? Because a lot of clubs did not grow last year during the COVID year, but you obviously did. Can you share a tip or two as to why or what specifically happened, or was there a particular initiative that led to this level of growth?
There were several initiatives, and like I mentioned, we also had at some point we had the Rotarians becoming Rotarians, and that also contributed to some of the growth in the club. But the initiative I told you about, posting a LinkedIn advertisement, for example, and also individually, some of the members have referred other members. We also had some referrals coming from, I believe, district on the portal to our club, and we actively follow those leads as well. So I believe those things contributed to our growth. Perhaps, Grace, you want to add something else?
Yeah, Grace is battling to get online, but something that I thought might have also added to it is that Grace actually introduced hybrid meetings before COVID. So it made it easier for people to join online, to join our meetings even before COVID happened. And when COVID did happen, it actually wasn't that difficult for us to actually move on to online continuously. So, you know, that I think might have helped as well. Grace just sent me a message. I just want to see if there's anything else. So she said also there was Facebook. We started streaming a lot of our meetings live on Facebook. Obviously, Jean has mentioned that we used LinkedIn and the Rotary leads. She also said we went back 4 years on the leads and managed to recruit 5 members from old leads. Yeah, so that was good. And she said that we built a database and everyone receives our newsletter and special invites. So we keep on sending people invitations to join our meetings. And something else that graced was our international Expand Your Network meetings, which we have once a month now on the first Tuesday of every month, where we invite an international club and a local club, and we really exchange ideas and so on. And that, I think, also it brings more people to our meetings, people who are potentially members.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to be borrowing some of those snippets whenever I speak to another club about recruitment. I need to update my slide with that information, because again, that's just fantastic. And I really wanted to pause here and just ask that question, because as you can see, globally, we're trending downwards. We know for a fact that Africa is growing, but I'm really liking the idea of getting some real reasons behind or how or what initiatives that had led to that particular growth. So let me just share what happens normally, not necessarily what's happening in the Rotary Club of Johannesburg. Last year, we saw over 140,000 members leaving, joining, and over close to 138 had left. And in addition to that 138, 10% of those members left within the first year. So what we found was 90% of our prospective members are inspired by our history and mission. They love what we do, they know exactly what we're about. And 44%, a little under half, said, this is perfect. It's perfectly aligned with their goals and their values, and they're not going anywhere. They're going to be a lifelong member. What we're seeing happen, though, is a little over half of those members leave within the first 3 years. So President Angelo, consider that and remember that going forward, that there's a 3-year tenure where Rotarians tend to be leaving if they're not fully engaged, whether in a committee or a project or in feeling comfortable in that club. And that's a number that we've been seeing going back for years. So again, a little more, less than half said they're not going anywhere, but a little bit more than half tend to disappear within the first 3 years. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, can I just interrupt you there?
Sure, please.
One of my key sort of missions for the year is really to keep our current members actively engaged in what we're doing, rather than just grow our numbers. I know our Rotary International president said, each one bring one. And it is a good idea to increase membership, but I don't just want numbers. I want people who are really involved and feel valued and get, value from being a member of our club.
And you're absolutely right. And the survey and information that I'm sharing on this screen really backs that up, because we did a global survey that ended last December 2020 during the heights of COVID, when hybrid meetings and virtual. And the reasons why Rotarians join is for local community service. There's also friendship and fellowship, but the main reason for Rotarians joining and staying is for local community service. They're also looking for professional connections and networking. And that's what Rotary started in the first place, to network and interact with other professional and other like-minded persons. Rotaract is also similar in relation to community service, personal growth, and professional development. This piece of it that we found that was very interesting as well was 85% of our Rotarians were introduced or found Rotary through other Rotarians by simply asking and inviting someone to come to a meeting or to a service project or to a social. So obviously, the mantra for President Shaker, which is each one bring one, and he has an aggressive target for net growth of 1.3, we can definitely do that. If 85% of the persons are joining Rotary because we ask, and this year, if we deliberately ask and say, look, we needed to invite you to Rotary. Some clubs are making it specific to say, I'm going to invite one person and document that and give that to the membership chair to say, look, I'm making the commitment to invite at least one person. So some clubs are doing that. Another thing we found that we liked when we did the survey was almost 82% of our newer Rotarians felt extremely or very welcome in their clubs. That was a good response for us, because we've seen where the club environment was one of the major reasons why Rotarians leave. And the next slide really confirms that as well. Our former members say they left because of time, cost, or unmet expectations. Because remember, a little over half said they're not going anywhere. They wanted to give back of service. They wanted to have fun and fellowship. So if there's not fun, there's no fellowship, and very little or no service projects, their expectations aren't met. And that's the reasons why some of our Rotarians left. The time and cost also, we try to mitigate that by creating some flexibility within our clubs as to if there's a cost for a meal or not, and being flexible with time. Those are the things that we've tried to use to mitigate those responses. The reasons why our current members leave, and we found this out during the whole COVID period, is virtual meetings. A few of the members just didn't like this whole virtual meeting things. But when we asked, most Rotarians, when we asked, the COVID-19 pandemic has not affected them leaving any at all. 36 even said that the pandemic has made it more likely that they will remain. And I guess because between hybrid meetings, there are more opportunities to give back of service, persons were sticking around more, and the pandemic did not affect us that way or affect us that negatively. The question of, has the pandemic made it more likely that you would leave? 9% of Rotarians said they would. Now, 9% doesn't really sound like a larger number, but 9% works out to approximately 107,000 Rotarians. So we were anticipating a net loss of close to 107,000. Remember the previous slide, the net loss was actually 12. So obviously, we must have done something right to engage, attract, and retain new members. And obviously, again, Rotary Club of Johannesburg is a beacon of how to do that, because growth of that magnitude doesn't happen on a regular basis. I would just want that to continue going forward. And again, I'm going to be borrowing some of those tips as to what to do, because clubs ask us all the time, what can I do to attract and retain members? And I really like the spin that you've put on it. And obviously, again, to take your club to a new direction and look at flexibility. This is what we're doing now between hybrid meetings before COVID. That's the way to do it. Between new resources and satellite clubs, passport clubs. And I just want to share a little bit about that as well too, because we're finding our traditional clubs may or may not meet the needs for our members, but there are e-clubs and satellite clubs and passport and cause-based clubs. And there's so much flexibility. We're seeing cause-based satellite clubs. We're seeing e-clubs that are, doing a whole bunch of things. Passport clubs basically used to operate like how most of the clubs are operating now. A passport club could only meet twice a month, and they have the option to meet in person or online. But with COVID, it's like almost every club went to the passport type model. So all of these changes are in place just to make things a little bit more flexible. And this one now is for Jean, which is looking at the membership life cycle just to continue the particular growth. And we do recommend that clubs have a membership development plan and have these specific initiatives with action items along recruitment and onboarding and engagement, specific things how to do that, and specifically how to retain and reactivate. So the reactivation piece, I think you mentioned it earlier, we're finding when a president comes in, like now President Angela for July and August, reaching out to the former members, especially if they're still living in and around the neighborhood. What we found from the data was 30% of our Rotarians want to come back. They may have left for a particular reason based on a club environment, but reaching out to them and having a reunion meeting to say, look, I'm the new president now, we're going in a new direction, we need your help to give back to the community, and re-engage them. 1 in 3 want to come back. So that's something to consider, going forward. And on the engagement, please, you guys are doing all of these things, which we recommend or suggest Rotary clubs to do, which is mix things up, vary a meeting format. You're doing information meetings and social meetings and networking meetings. I need to bottle you up and share this to the world, because a lot of clubs are not doing what you're doing to generate this level of engagement. Virtual and hybrid meetings. But most importantly, that we find to help with engagement is to do a survey. So if you've not done a survey yet, please try and do one. And the surveys can be as simple as asking 3 questions. What you'd like to start, stop, or continue, or do a 10-question, 12-question survey. And we have some electronic surveys that I can share with you, President Angela and John, just to ask questions. Are the meetings okay? Are the meetings too long? Are the meetings too short? If you're meeting in person, is the food okay? Are we doing more projects? Are we doing too much? And also just to ask questions of your membership to find out what they're passionate about, and they can bring that to the floor. So please do a survey. It's very, very important. just to hear from your members. And I do have some samples of some electronic ones I can share with you. Just it could work just to find out from your members. And again, I think you guys are doing well at this, which is to balance fellowship, service, and networking, and also, you know, participate in district events, which are pets and projects and conferences. All of these things really do help on the engagement piece, because that really cements the value proposition and really provide that return on investment for your members. So just sharing some engagement opportunities that we've seen during the pandemic. And again, you guys are doing all of this stuff, which is fantastic. Virtual meetings on socials. We're seeing clubs supplying meals with people with food insecurity. So if you are doing that now, that's fantastic. If not, try and continue to do that. We saw the clubs that grew this year and over the past 18 months had smaller hands-on projects that they got involved with. That particular picture at the top right showed a club partnering with another nonprofit and providing food to persons that are in need. And this was during the pandemic, where masks were required and they were all social distance. The persons would drive up, the meals are placed in the back of the trunk of the car, and the persons in need would just drive off. We're seeing supplying tablets and to students and nursing homes. And again, I am sitting in Kennesaw, Georgia in the US, and we're connecting with other Rotarians worldwide. This is how we do to have engagement opportunities during a pandemic. So if you've not considered partnering with another nonprofit, consider that as well, because they would have projects and they're on the ground a little bit closer as well to find out what the needs are in the community. You can really get some good partnerships there. I want to speak about no-show fundraisers. And obviously you guys were doing this before, which is hybrid meetings. And a few clubs, when they had to move, I've been encouraging them to try and find a location with audio and video already in place, because it's a major challenge if you're going to be doing it over the long term, and then you have to, a Rotarian have to be responsible for taking a projector and a screen and speakers. So we do recommend that if you have to move, breaking possibly a long-term relationship, find a location with AV already in place. It may be a restaurant, it may be a school or a library, it may be a lecture hall at a university. We're finding clubs doing some really innovative things to keep this hybrid option alive and kicking. No-show fundraisers, we saw this skyrocketed tremendously. And what that is, I'm aware of clubs who had like a traditional annual foundation dinner or a luncheon, and they just moved all of that online. They may or may not have charged an entry fee, but they still kept whatever musical item and they still kept their agenda intact. But because it was all virtual, the expense of the event was removed, and a few clubs actually made a lot more money than they did in the past by not having an in-person event. And they've coined it a no-show fundraiser. So we're doing a fundraiser, you're not physically showing up. And again, we've seen clubs make quite a bit of money that way, and obviously that money is going right back into helping the community. So again, this is what engagement looks like, you know, just interacting, making our meetings fun. You really get to know your Rotarians when you go to an event or a project or a social, or you're taking a drive to an event. And again, the picture to the bottom left is just a club that interacted with a nonprofit and just providing food to persons in need. So from what I'm seeing, you guys are already doing all of this, which is fantastic. It's just that right now it's moved into the virtual realm. And I'm going to be using the Rotary Club of Johannesburg as an example as to what can be done to grow your membership in very, very trying times. So I just want to close with our vision statement, which was generated about a little over 2 years ago. And I really love it, and it reads, "Together we see a world where people unite and take action to create lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves." So again, I just want to thank you for having me, President Angela and Grace, for the invitation. I'll definitely stick around if you have any thoughts or comments or questions, and feel free to send me an email.
Thank you very much, Audley.
With anything at all. Sure.
Thanks. Sorry, I don't know if did you guys get that last bit? You suddenly broke away there. But thank you very much for a very interesting presentation.
Sure.
I think it's definitely very nice to see, you know, the different jurisdictions and how they're doing and how the numbers have changed over the last 10 years. And, you know, myself as a new Rotarian with less than a year, for somebody who's actually likes engaging with people and networking, you know, it's definitely, we got to get creative with how we keep things exciting over these virtual platforms and how we keep the momentum going.
Absolutely.
It is actually very nice to see that, and yeah, very informative. I want to hand over to John, and John can introduce. See, his hand's already up. Oh, it's Minnie who's got his hand up. So, but John, I'm going to hand over to you and see if we can take any questions from the people on the call.
Sure.
Yes. Questions, anyone? I will start it with a question. I have a question myself. I already have connected with you on LinkedIn, by the way, because I think that we need to speak some more.
Sure.
I would like perhaps for you to share your experience in terms of recruiting. What has worked best? I know that you've presented, but if you can give us maybe one anecdote or one particular example that a club might have initiated that really got a great traction. And of course, I'm talking about also that balance Angela said in terms of having active members, because we don't only want a lot of members, we want high quality members as well. So if you have
sure. What we've seen a club do, which is going back to basics in a sense, because there was a rigid classification scenario decades ago where it was only required one attorney and one realtor and one banker. It was a little more rigid at the time. You could use that as a guide to just look at your active members to find out which profession or in our community is missing and invite them deliberately to your meetings. So your meetings are in the evening, so you could possibly attract more persons in education, possibly a teacher who would be close to the ground and know exactly what's happening in the school system. More than likely, we may have a doctor or a dentist, but how many nurses do we have in our clubs? And again, I like the evening where you are, because that creates a lot more flexibility than a breakfast or lunch meeting where you have professionals that may have a challenge to come in. So consider as a classification, look to see which particular profession is missing, and also look at our 7 avenues of service. So can you imagine reaching out to a medical professional or a hospital administrator to say, look, one of our major global initiatives is to deal with health and sanitation and water and education and the environment. Reach out to those professionals and say, look, this is what we do. And that would also inspire them and I have another passionate Rotarian to come into your club as well too. So that's a really good rule of thumb to glance at that and look at business association. If you have a chamber of commerce, go to these meetings, interact with those persons, because I'm sure there are a lot more professionals out there that may not know about Rotary and how wonderful it is and how it's an excellent organized way to give back. So try it that way. Look at the classification to see which profession is missing. And again, I really like for evening clubs, you must be able to attract a teacher. You must be able to attract social workers. You must be able to attract a nurse, somebody who are a police officer or firefighters, those persons that are in the field interacting with the people on a daily basis. Those folks are already Rotarians. They're just not in our club.
Wow, that is a fantastic insight. That's the type of stuff I was looking for. Really, thank you.
Sure.
It will be very helpful. I have a follow-up question, but I want to give somebody else a chance to ask a question. Yeah.
Well, hopefully everything was clear as mud, because we're not getting much questions, so that's fine. So hopefully it was super clear.
Yeah, for me it was.
No worries.
Anybody else has a question?
I think Monica was saying something.
Comment on what Audrey was talking about. Besides looking at which professions are missing in our club, we also maybe need to look in the projects we are doing in our communities. What kind of professions do we need to provide the services that we are we missing to provide the services that we are providing to our community? Just that.
Agreed. That's a very good option as well. That's fantastic.
Does anyone else have any questions? Jean, you said you had another question?
Yes. I don't know if it's a question or more of a comment. I like the no-show fundraiser idea. And I actually wanted to find out typically, you know, how much is, you know, like the value, or is it like something that you need to pass to a vote, or is there an average? Because I think that we may wanna introduce it in our club. I will table it to our president.
Sure.
Consider that.
And I've seen clubs do that no-show fundraiser, especially because it's a virtual platform. If you're doing anything like a concert or something like a telethon, where you can invite an artist to speak, have the Zoom set up at the location's artist's studio or something, or if you have a very good musical item and an agenda, and you ask persons to basically donate. We've seen clubs set the Zoom meeting registration up with a registration fee. Given that it's also virtual, it may work a little better if you're inviting them to come and then really appeal to them based on showing what your projects are during the course of the event, and just say make a donation. What works well with that is if you have a website or something on the back end where it's easy for someone to click, key their credit card information in, possibly a link through PayPal or something, and make a donation from there. So if it's all done by Rotarians, and Rotarians are volunteering their time, talent, and treasure to put this on, you really wouldn't have any expense. So everything that's coming in would really go right back into, you know, the accounts of their club, which is the give back of service. So I saw a club that did a virtual derby where they watched a horse show, a horse race, and it was a pre-recorded video, but in between that there was a virtual fashion show and virtual sing at a different location and someone playing the guitar, and persons made donations. I think they made about 75,000 US dollars in less than a few days, because they advertised it before, and on the event persons just made donations. So they also reached out to corporate entities as well to say, look, this is what we do, these are our projects, this is the concert that's going to be happening, make a donations when we can, because we're really giving back to the community. And again, all the technical support was done on the back end via Zoom. If you have a Rotarian that has the technical expertise to possibly fading in and that kind of a thing, that's okay. We've seen clubs do it virtually like this, and it works tremendously. I've seen virtual bingo where, you know, persons purchase the bingo cards and do a virtual bingo online. That could be done every quarter, just to consider, you know, getting funds in, especially because we're not able to do in-person fundraisers anymore. And I've seen persons do a formal dinner where everyone is on Zoom in a tuxedo and a tie, and they're all dressed up, and that's okay. So we're gonna have to be doing this for a little while. I'm not so sure what the pandemic is like in South Africa right now, if, you know, everything is still on lockdown or people are still moving about a little bit. So if we're going to be doing this virtual space for a while, there's tons of things that we can do and that we have seen. And I'm excited about that, because if you look at Rotary and fundraising, we have been meeting in person, traditionally via meeting or an in-person event for the past 100+ years. Look what we've done in just 1 year or 16 months. I'm excited to see what we'll come up with a year from now, because we've pivoted and done so much in a year, being forced to do this virtually. I'm just excited to what, you know, folks will come up with a year from now, given if we're still using the space in a hybrid